are we, everybody? It's always helpful when someone has to come and find you and say, hey, Lacey, you're chairing a session. And then you realise you'd forgotten and you don't have any session notes. But that's okay, that's how we roll. We make stuff work, right, people? So welcome to our session for Technology Part 1. So we've got 4 presentations today. I do not have any of my session presenter notes with me because, you know, busy chatting to people, but that's okay because we like to wing it. So what we're going to do today is ask each of our speakers when they come up to just give you a brief intro to themselves as well. So first today, I'll do a little bit of an intro. We have David Cox, Director of Growth from MRA Consulting, who's speaking about AI, shaking up the sector and enabling circular economy. If we do have time at the end of each speaker, we will ask questions, otherwise we'll hold them to the end. So David.
Thanks, Lacey. How long do I have? An hour? 2 hours? How long? 5 minutes? I'll take votes at this point in time. We'll see how we go. I'll introduce myself. My name is David Cox. I'm Director for Growth with MRA Consulting. We're a small consulting firm that specialises particularly in the waste and recycling and circular economy sector. About myself, I find myself here a rather circuitous route. I started my career as an undergraduate studying computer science and electrical engineering. Worked in that sector for a dozen years or so. Found my way into a brewery. Ran a brewery for 5 years, and then had an epiphany and decided to change tack and move back into that sustainability sector. And I jumped in the bin into the waste sector. I've never crawled out of it since. And somehow, ironically, I'm back looking at AI. So it's right back to the graduate days of neural networks and trying to make them work. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Coffs Harbour and surrounds, the Gombangir people, and we acknowledge their elders past, present, emerging. So today, my intent is really to explore how AI is revolutionising the waste management practices and discuss some of the potential future developments on a sort of 5-year horizon. Who here's used ChatGPT? If there's anyone here that has not, no, let's change it. Who here has not used ChatGPT? I don't believe you, but well done. I could have used ChatGPT to create this presentation. It probably would have been a lot better. It would have saved me a lot of time, but I'm sorry. I'm old school, and you're going to have this regular humans content showing up on the page, but I may put a little bit of AI in it. We'll see how we go. First test, the technology. I'm pressing, nothing's happening. Where should I press? Over this way? Oh, there we go. Great. Good. Thank you. So why AI? There's a definition there from CSIRO. And essentially, I'll read their words, so it's theirs, not mine, is that according to CSIRO, AI may be defined as a collection of interrelated technologies used to solve problems autonomously and perform tasks to achieve defined objectives without explicit guidance from a human being. Sounds rather ominous, really. But realistically, with continuous investments in technology and advancements, AI is becoming increasingly integrated into the various industries. Its applications of waste management are poised to be transformative over the next few years. Recent advancements in AI have really opened up new opportunities. We're seeing better waste prediction occurring. We're understanding the waste we generate more effectively through understanding its composition and its contamination. It's assisting us better our source separation systems. It's improving the collection frequencies of our fleet and vehicles. It's helping us optimise recycling processes through plant utilisation and making it cheaper to effectively recycle products and changing the economic barriers to recycling versus landfill. It's improving safety through identifying hazardous goods in the waste streams, but also keeping humans out of harm's way and away from moving equipment. And lastly, it's reducing the environmental impacts. There are projects out there right now doing their best to help clean up the environment. So what problems is AI solving? On the right-hand side there, I didn't draw that picture. I asked Microsoft's Copilot to draw me a picture. The exact words, that I put into the chatbot were, can you draw me an infographic to illustrate the current problems that AI is addressing in the waste sector? And I was hoping that would be the end of the problem or end of the session, but it's sort of ironic when you look at that picture. That was all I used in prompts, other than take it back to monotone blue, make it look a bit simpler. It's all people. And I think that is probably the key point. AI is being utilised to assist us to undertake tasks more quickly and efficiently. However, there's still some ways to go for us to sort of transition to that autonomous AI world, that utopian future or dystopian future, depending on which way you look at it. And it's been explained to me as there's sort of three phases in the development and adoption of AI. First is that deployment of sensors and vision systems to enable us to collect the data to categorise the world and enable to train AI systems. Second is that the process through where AI systems learn to better perform tasks and work alongside us and assist us to do things better. And lastly is that development of autonomous AI systems that are able to go out there and perform their tasks without us autonomously, and they're on their own, and that we're happy to leave them unsupervised. So I thought I'd use this just as a moment to digress a little bit. Oh, we want to jump through. Here we go. Yep. And just talk a little bit about machine learning versus AI, because often these two terms are used, and sometimes there's sort of common misconceptions in terms of what the differences are. So I thought this might be a good point just to pause. So AI is really any technique that enables computers to mimic human intelligence using logic, if-then rules, decision trees, neural networks, or whatever have you. Machine learning uses statistical techniques typically to give computer systems the ability to learn from data without being explicitly programmed. So it's a subset of AI. It still is AI, but it's a subset of AI. And then there's a further subset of machine learning that's called deep learning. And typically this is a class of machine learning algorithms that use neural networks or rely on algorithms that sort of mimic the way in which our brains work. So where's AI being used today? It's transformative. It's being used through automated sorting system, utilising robots and sorting infrastructure, machine learning for accurate and rapid waste categorisation and route optimisation, through data analysis for efficient collection, data-driven decision-making with predictive analytics for effective resource planning and strategy. So I've popped up about lumped these into sort of 5 areas. The first being that waste predictive piece. The second being understanding the materials or the resources which we're trying to recover. The third is the source separation systems. This is how we interface with those materials, our bin systems, our collection and transport systems. How do we make them more efficient with route optimisation, etc., and safety systems. Once the material comes off the truck, the sorting and separating systems. And lastly, working with the environmental impacts. And I'll talk to each of those now. Here's a daunting graph. The graph on the right there shows waste generation over the last 20-odd years. It also plots our economic activity, GVA, and also plots population growth. So the traditional way that we look at waste prediction is to use regression analysis. That is, we look back at a couple of factors that we understand, or they're large macro factors that correlate with what it is we're trying to look forward. And in this instance here, you'd immediately look at GVA and say, well, that's a really good indicator of what's been driving waste generation, but the story is much bigger than that. We know that there's waste levies. How do they factor into this? They change behaviour, they change waste generation. How does legislation and bans affect what's going on? All these other factors are there and present, and we may not necessarily be taking them into account. So regression analysis is the typical modelling technique that we use. It's statistical, we can sort of build up assumptions, and we can understand it. But AI promises to deliver us much more, a broader system that can bring in many, many more factors to consider when doing prediction. And as I said, MSW analysis, for example, municipal solid waste, is usually associated with economic and demographic activity. The other sectors might be different. So construction and demolition waste, well, it may have a completely different set of factors that are subcategories or different. And C&I waste, again, it's a broad category, but it can have a range of different other factors that contribute to what its drivers are. And similarly, if I then break that down by product or material, photovoltaics are emerging waste. The history is not going to tell me anything about future voltaic waste generation arising. And similarly, if I go down by material category, I might be looking at PVC, or I might be looking at a particular metal. It becomes even more complex. We are working with some of our clients in this space, and there's some real-world examples. One of our clients that's manufacturing they're a food manufacturer, they manage perishable food. It has a 2-day shelf life. So they've got two problems. One, they make too much. They've spent too much on their ingredients. They haven't optimised, and so therefore their profits are low. And on the converse side of that, they've got the waste disposal on the other side of the product that's gone off. So AI can be used, they're using AI in two elements. One, to help them, assist them with their predictive production processes. What's the demand going to be like over the next day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? How much should I be making? And the second one is, well, if I make X, irrespective of what the AI system tells me, for a range of factors, I want to keep the shelves full, or I'm worried about or having a certain headroom, how much waste is going to arise, so they can map recovery pathways for that product. And in this instance, it's food, and so there is second bite and those sort of opportunities through the charity sector. If they don't get it right, then they can't leverage them. There's a few other examples of waste predictive technologies being used in that waste predictive space, and a really good example is a program being run by CSIRO at the moment, which is AA for Next Generation Food and Waste System. It's a collaborative project between 7 partners. They're listed up there. And it has 3 real key objectives. The first is improving yield and control for farms by developing machine vision techniques to achieve real-time monitoring. The second is looking at the food processing procedures, production practices and fresh food delivery by using heuristic-based optimisation. And that sort of talks to what I was talking about before about optimising your production processes. And the last is improving efficiency in waste collections and management by establishing data-driven scheduling tools. What does that mean in layman's English? I guess essentially what they're trying to get to is having automatic or dynamic routing of a waste collection fleet based on AI-driven determination of what the waste generation arising from these food businesses would be. So it takes the decision-making out of the hands of humans and individuals to get the waste fleet optimisation just right in that commercial sector. It's a really, really promising and interesting project. Moving on from that predictive piece into material characterisations. There's a number of different technology suppliers providing solutions for bin sensor and bin vision systems, and I've listed a few examples. I have to look up here because this screen's not working, so sorry for turning my back to you, but a couple that come straight to mind for that sort of bin data collection and waste image capture sensors. So these are in-bin sensors. There's a company called Compology. The link, when you get the presentation, you'll follow that through. And similarly, there's also a number of suppliers using mobile apps. So you hold your mobile phone over the bin and it tells you what's in it, or it flags some contaminants for you, and can also be used to identify those items. Then when we move to source separation systems, we're seeing emergence of technology in the public place arena. So these are really systems that are trying to take the decision-making out of us poor humans that can't work out what bin to put a bit of public place litter into. And so there's some examples up here too. Bin E is an AI-based smart waste bin. It automatically sorts and compresses wastes and processes the data on site for use by the managers. Smart bin technologies is intriguing in that it's actually able to automatically sort and break down plastics by their classification as well as metals and glass. And Clean Robotics, which is a smart public place bin called the Trash Spot, that uses AI, computer vision and machine learning technology to sort waste by stream. So you've got your organics, your recyclables, you've got your refuse. But it doesn't stop there. In curbside systems, we're seeing AI predominantly being deployed on the collection fleet and in the vehicles. So there's a couple of examples there of both clean bins, I think we're presenting later this afternoon, and AMCS AI vision technology. So typically what these systems are doing is leveraging AI and vision systems to detect contaminants and detect composition of materials that rises in the hopper. But they also do a little bit more. So for example, you can see some images over on the right-hand side there and some pictures of the back-end systems that they provide. So there are some really good case examples of deployment of these systems. Sort of back in 2020 was probably the first one we saw emerging in the Australian market, with Canterbury Bankstown initiated a trial leveraging AI and machine learning to analyse data obtained from the garbage trucks, so using GPS and cameras for contamination detection. So that was back in 2020. And effectively that was to enhance the effectiveness of their analysis and enable them to more understand what sort of interventions they might be able to make on the education and in the recycling stream and change their engagement education approach. So a little bit more about education and engagement. There's a notable case of AI and waste management from Curtin University, Sustainable Policy Institute, where they explored the potential application of using machine learning models to identify and measure household waste contamination again, but also to link that back to the education programs, interventions that they might have at the household level. But also, we will come across chatbots and we come across AI assistants. And the natural language processing approaches has some real advantage that they can pull learnings from non-structured data. So if you've got a website, you've got FAQs, you've got product information behind the scenes, you can support your customer service team by deploying natural language processing to give them the answers to common questions and guide their solutions. An example there of one that's being generated at the moment by Kirby, which is their Kirby Cycle Virtual Assistant. But there's many, many more. And lastly, on the collection side of things, there's a couple more supplies I'll just throw up again, just to give some examples of where it's being used. Innovo, which is looking at optimising the fleet routing system based on historical data and other factors that might come into play. It might be weather, it might be the fact that there was a grand final that week and there's a lot of beer bottles in the recycling bin, for example. Rubicon, again, does a similar sort of system where they're looking to optimise routes. But there's also some real-world practical examples that are improving the safety of you and I and vulnerable road users, such as a system by PRM Engineering Services and their Sentinel Vision system, which is looking for vulnerable road users or humans close to trucks that shouldn't be there, to alert both to the danger or the risk that they might be exposed to. This is where the fun begins. So there's a range of different AI systems being deployed in the sorting and processing sector. I could go on for quite some time, and I've just chosen some that we're aware of, and I've listed them up there, and I'll just run through a few of those examples because some of them are a little bit different. So we have material characterisation and sorting bots. So there's a couple of examples there from AMP and MaxI. We've got a combination of AI systems and air injection systems for separation, and there's an example there from Vivid Air, and there's also deployed by Veolia and a number of the other waste service providers you'll see here that operate MRFs. Grey Parrot's a really interesting application where they've basically got vision systems sitting over the top of conveyor belts at multiple stages during a sorting process, looking for ways to more efficiently operate the MRF. So it may not necessarily be looking for a contamination issue, but it's looking for how can we better actually manage the material recovery facility. And Zen Robotic have got an interesting application of a larger robot used for segregating heavier items that you might find in the C&D sector, for example. But it's not just AI standalone as well. So a noted example from Veolia there, because they actively integrate AI systems with humans, noting that the AI system is good at separating light materials, and they'll leave the human operators to separate the heavier materials that might appear down the MRF line. A couple of other examples here. Tomra's got a stand, thanks to Karina for giving me a little bit of information about a couple of their examples. They're combining their deep learning gain system with existing auto sort, so combining vision systems with near-infrared technology to better sort plastics, and in this instance they're able to separate food grade from non-food grade plastics, both PET, PP, HDPE on a large scale, which is quite unique. And also in particle board manufacture, where they're pulling out stones, metal chips, and other bits from recycled wood fractions for particle board manufacture. Is that 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or half an hour? I've got 33 slides to go. All right.
So when I start ringing incessantly...
And when everyone starts leaving out the back there, I know I'm in trouble. Okay, all right, I'll move through. These are a couple of examples of businesses that are probably in this room, and if you are, yell out. If I've got it wrong, let me know. So Cleanaway have obviously got AI technology deployed in their immersive self-sorting material. Bingo Industries have done some unique things. They've got I think it's called the Row Bingo, which is a little roving bot that looks for hazardous materials on the tipping floor. Bingo also do some other interesting stuff where there's two things. One, hazardous material identification using vision systems, and also second, looking at exclusion zones. So monitoring the workplace to see, hey, there's a human entering within the exclusion zone of an operating bit of a plant, provide an alert to a manager or some other sort of alert to prevent increased risk and possibility of injury. Okay. Environmental impacts and clean up pollution. So this is not somewhere that we often talk about when we think about the waste solution, because this is the problem's got into the environment and there's not much that we can do about it, but yes there is, and AI has got some really good examples here of where it's being deployed. So there was a Microsoft hackathon which supported ocean cleanup, and that's been looking at identifying quantities of plastic pollution in waterways and water bodies, and providing that sort of discrimination between what might be organic litter or naturally arising litter, sorry, it's a poor term, and the plastic pollution. CSIRO's been doing some really interesting work, been setting up cameras, systems and technologies on bridges and poles near rivers to track rubbish in the waterways and identify that, and so then there can be some management decisions made around how best to either mitigate it in the first place or trap it. Epic.io are looking in that sort of legal dumping space at combining recognition systems with tracking licence number information and issuing alerts to authorities. And waste maps completely different again. So they're looking at the whole material flow analysis through the economy. So you've got a virtual digital imprint of actually what's occurring on a global scale across different materials and the waste pathways that they follow. That means 30 seconds, doesn't it? No, 1 minute. That means I'm up. Alrighty, okay. I'm going to do 2 more slides. I've got 23, but we'll do 2 more. All right. Let's click through. 1. Can we have a vote? How many slides am I allowed? 2, got 2. Anyone cover any higher from 23? 3? No, we're 2 going once, going twice to the man in the front here. I'll collect the money later, thank you. All righty, other. This now starts to hit on my world. So if anyone here is with a New South Wales local government authority, I'd go check out that link, because there's some pre-approved supply for deployment of AI in planning applications and filtering and supporting your planning application work. And I don't imagine it'll be long until we see that across a whole range of the permitting authority sector, where there's clear legislative guidelines and other bits and pieces that these systems can fall back on when assessing applications. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. According to McKinsey, 40 to 60% of something of consultant work's not going to be required anymore. But there's real impacts of this stuff too, and we probably need to keep mindful of that. A little bit of assessment on the environmental footprint, the training of GPT-3, that's the previous one, just the training of the system consumed 1,287 megawatt hour of energy, and it produced equivalently 550 tonnes of carbon dioxide. And the current GT4, before they put it in place, they looked, obviously it has an energy footprint, but it also has a water footprint. Who knew that these AI, or the data centres using to run these AI systems, had a water demand for cooling and other bits and pieces? And the estimate is about half a litre per 20 questions. So I think twice about how many questions you ask ChatGPT. All right, I'm going to take right through, skip a couple of slides, we'll get to the nub of it. Coming to you. Does anyone here do waste audits? The local government's got waste audits, have I got a solution for you? Well, this is something we're working on, and we're not the only ones. And that's taking the manually intensive waste compositional analysis and using AI to speed up that process. So next year, come back, I'll present on the product, or I'll send you a quote in the meantime. But what we intend to do is basically replace the 10 or 15 people we use to manually pick and sort with a couple. So we'll spread the material, use imaging software, identify the key categories of material. Yes, there are limitations to it, but it's a damn sight faster, a damn sight quicker, and a damn sight safer, and probably gives you 90% of what you need at a lot lower cost. Now, and where we're going, I'm getting really... I said 2. Did I do 2? All right, All right, I've got one last slide. Okay, and this is my last slide. Okay, lost control of your speakers right in the first one. Okay, designing circular products. Did you know that iterative machine learning can assist design process, rapid prototyping and testing? So it enables products in the first place that don't create waste. Circular business models. This is all about leasing and not actually selling a product, but selling a service. So AI enables us to sort of own the inventory, understand what its maintenance requirements and keep its longevity through the system. Optimising recycling infrastructure, we've talked about that for the last 30 minutes. Predictive analytics, we talked quite a fair bit about that as well. And that last one, the most important one, I think, is financial returns and sustainability. Waste is like a river. It flows downhill to the lowest cost. And if AI can change the economics, then it has real promise. So thank you very much.
I'd love to say that we have time for questions, but I'm going to say no, we don't, David. See, this is why I didn't have my app to read out David's bio. David, if you'd like to take my chair, because there are no seats down the front. Yours has gone missing. Okay, so our next speaker for today, and I will remind Fiona that we've got 20 minutes. I'll give you a ding at 2 and then I'll ding madly at 20. Fiona Stock has completed a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and a major in Zoology and has worked in local government for over 20 years. Her current role is Manager of Business and Tech Waste Services at Sutherland Shire Council, where she improves current business practices, future-proofing Sutherland Council's waste collection services. Fiona specialises in writing, negotiating and implementing waste collection and processing contracts and the application of innovative projects, which has, over the years, seen her awarded for her efforts, including winning the International LiveCom Awards for her council. Fabulous. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. Now, two extra things to know about me, because I thought we were going to be getting to do our own bios. As you saw me hobble up, I'm absolutely gutted I'm not going to be on the dance floor tomorrow night. And the second thing is I'm a Luddite with technology. So this is actually a very interesting project for me to be part of. Now, which way do the slides go? I'm just going to test them out. Okay, so the presentation I'm going to give you is not specifically about the type of technology. I'll touch on that a little bit, but it's our journey on how we actually got there. So Sutherland Council, if you don't know, is a council in southern Sydney. There's about 87,000 households, and we run our own day labour fleet. We've got up to 50 vehicles, heavy rigid vehicles within that fleet. Okay, let's see if I go the right way. Yeah, there we go. So I could spend the whole 20 minutes plus the 2 minutes going on about statistics about change management, but you guys all know. You know that 70% of change programs fail. You also know that 40% of that is the lack of management support. So if you want to get a project done, you need to get support from the top. The other statistic I was looking up is change fatigue, and 60% of projects fail because of change fatigue. We started this in 2021, so as you can imagine, I'm going to be talking a little bit about change fatigue. But the model that Sutherland uses is the ADCAR model, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that one and what that actually looks like in reality. Okay, so first off, you need to have a plan. It needs to be communicated to the whole team, and as new members join, you need to start again and reiterate that plan so that everybody knows where they need to be at that point in time. Also, as I said, we started in 2021, so some people have leave and other things happen, other projects get in the way. So if you've actually talked to everybody about what the plan is, then everyone knows where you're headed. Okay, so as I said, we commenced the business plan in 2021. I'm sorry, I move around a lot, obviously. And that was approved by our executive team. The objectives of this business plan were to improve reporting capability for service issues, improve our safety through HV&L compliance, downloading of footage for incident reporting, and to improve our route optimisation and planning. just go back, sorry. At the planning phase, it's very important that you work out who are your stakeholders. And those stakeholders are going to come and go. Some will be with you for the whole journey, but you need to make sure that you know who they are. You also need to make sure you focus on reporting, consultation and training. And once you've got this framework set up, it's actually going to help you through the whole process, because believe me, once you're in the middle of it, once you're getting those weekly meetings happening, everything can go out the window if you don't have that proper planning framework. Okay, so who are my stakeholders? So at Sutherland, we have what's called a project control group, and that's made up of our managers, and our director is the project sponsor. So there, tick, we've got that high-level management approval right at the beginning. Then under that, we have a project control group, project team with the stakeholders. And what we did was we looked at who are going to be our stakeholders. So as I said, I'm a Luddite with technology. So obviously I've got an IT business partner, the waste operations team, because they're going to be the ones who will be implementing this, and this will be a long-term solution for them. We have a change management specialist who holds our hand basically along the path, makes sure that we're still keeping to the path, and reassures us as is required. And also our fleet specialist. As I mentioned, we have our own vehicles, so we actually we're putting it into our vehicles, so we need to have someone who knows those trucks back and forward, up, down, whatever. And also there are going to be other key stakeholders as it progresses. So administration, because everything has a lot of administration, no matter how much you try and streamline things. Obviously, our drivers are a really important part of this. Without their cooperation, without their coming along that journey with us, we wouldn't get this anywhere. Our unions, so we need to make sure that the unions are across this and understand where we're going. Our risk management team, and obviously our finance team. That's another reason why a lot of projects fall over, is if you don't have the time, resources and budget. So initially this seems like a really large team, but obviously people will be coming and going as you require them, and that's the idea of having those key milestones and people coming in and out of the project as needed. So another way of looking at this is your key stakeholders are driven by who is impacted the most by this project. So you'll need to set up your meetings, your agenda, your action, your training, and you need to make sure that you include all of these stakeholders as part of that. As you can see, we've rated some of ours for high, for medium and for low. Reporting. I seriously cannot stress how much this is an integral part of this, how important it is. Meeting minutes are so important for keeping the team and your contractor accountable, and it captures scope creep. There's going to be scope creep. Seriously, there's going to be scope creep. The amount of times we've had to go back and read the submission, reread the tender, because there's always scope creep. Also, minutes can be shared with things like the project control group, so they can see where you're up to just very easily. Reporting, the more visual, the better. So what I've shown you here in this slide is our fleet installation tracking. So we could see each week when we met with our contractors how many of our fleet had actually had the technology installed. Where were we up to? So that just helped us to be able to keep a time frame on things so that we weren't getting behind. A project roadmap. So that sets your expectations for the project and the team members. So that's obviously going to have a timeline, roles and responsibilities and budgets. Roles and responsibilities is a very interesting and very important part. We've had a couple of team member changes throughout that, so we've needed to just reiterate roles and responsibilities of each team member. Consultation. Wow. The end users, the waste controllers, have been extensively consulted with throughout this entire project, from the development of the business case all the way through to the delivery. We've looked at how to communicate best, and we've realised that we need to meet our audience where they are at. So you can have the best technological things, and sometimes that just doesn't work. What I've got up here are 3 examples of when we've consulted with our drivers. And what we did, one of the examples was we had an option of putting a 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet into the cabs. What we did was we actually got them to vote on it. We got them to handle the technology, sit in the truck, set it up, what does it look like, and they could make a really informed decision from that point of view. And don't forget that your communication needs to be going 2 ways. So you need to be taking the feedback back from them. It's great to roll something out and say, here you go guys, it works, off you go. But to actually have them come back and be able to say, well, no, it's not logging my rest breaks as I want, or it's not, I want to turn the truck off, and when I turn it back on, something is not right. So we always have that 2-way communication. So we've also got a waste consultative committee, and I'm not sure whether you guys are familiar with waste consultative committees or any consultative committees for that matter, but it's a formal process, it's a formal meeting where we have driver representatives, we have operation representatives, and we also have our union representatives on there and our people and culture. So it's a formal process, and by introducing this technology through this forum, it was then able to be disseminated to the whole driver pool. And also, from what we've also done with the drivers is we've looked for champions. So some of our drivers are much more technological than I am, and we've used them, and we've also looked at ones that aren't very good with technology like me. So we've really used a mix of that. Okay, training. Training takes time. It may be repetitive, but you need to make sure you invest that time in training. It's an ongoing process, and again, you need to meet the audience where they're at. We've had a previous project that was rolled out, and I wasn't part of it because I'm not technologically minded. But a lot of our staff do a really good job with what they do. They can't use an iPhone, they can't use a computer, it's not part of their daily work. But when you're trying to roll out something that's technology, you need to keep that in mind and make sure that you're talking to the staff and you're taking that time to train them. Even our waste controllers team, some of them were so excited to get an app that they could download on their phone, and then they just self-taught themselves. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm not up to that bit yet. What are you doing? And they were, they had the maps and everything up. So just be aware that you're going to have some people that are really excited about this, and others actually said they were scared. So you've got to take that into consideration when you're actually rolling something like this out. And training, you are going to have some that it doesn't matter how many times you've trained them, how many sessions they've sat in, they're going to find fault with everything. Be aware there's people out there that will do that. You just need to bring them along on the journey. Give them something to do. Make sure that they feel that they're being heard, and whatever they're saying, you're actually listening and you're taking on board, and you're trying to make their journey as easy as possible. So we originally commenced with the contractor carrying out the training, and our change manager developed from that training some user guides, and that's a process that's still happening. I've got to say, one of the great things about Teams is you can actually record the meeting. So I'm sorry to Luddite here, but you can actually then use that to take screenshots, to show little videos, to make your user guides, and that's been really helpful for us as a larger team. A training plan. Make sure that you book people in early. People are trying to put this into their normal BAU, and you need to be mindful of that. Step by step, what training is needed. As I said, some people will be right at the beginning, and other people will just pick it up and run with it. Okay, so this is what we looked at for our training. Our change manager put all of this together to make sure that we're all on board. We know that some people, as I said, will self-learn, others need that extra help. We have regular meetings with our contractor. At the moment, we're just finalising the rollout and with the whole technology platform. And what we found was having a training session straight after that was really helpful for us. Might not be for you guys, but for us, that was really helpful. We also set up a group of super users, and those super users are going to be the go-to people for questions, 3, 6, 12 months down the track. So while we'll still have our contractor assisting us, sometimes people don't feel comfortable enough. They don't want to raise a service ticket about a quick question. So we have our group of super users as well. Okay, some noteworthy takeaway. Yeah, project fatigue is real. We all have different and competing projects. We live in the real world. We're BAU. We can't just pull all the drivers off their runs and train them. They've actually still got to pick up their bins. That's their job. So we've got to fit that in with everything else that's happening as well. And I can guarantee if you've got two major projects that are 12 months apart, if you're doing something like this, they're going to come into line with each other. It's just the way it is. So you need to be really mindful of your work capacity and how you plan your own time as well. Now, I mentioned scope creep before. Scope creep is real, and once you start the training, once you start to sort of think about the possibilities, it'll be, can we add this? Can we add that? Can we add something else? So you just need to be mindful that you stick to the objectives, stick to the tender, and stick to what you've said you will do. We have come up with a few suggestions with the contractor that we're working with, and they're going to be for the next phase, for the development. And that's okay. It's okay to put those things into that next phase. Otherwise, you'll blow out your timeframes and you're not going to get the technology implemented correctly. The other thing is with this, you are going to have limitations. So it's not going to do everything you want. So just be mindful of that one as well. So this is what our ADCAR looks like. So you've got, obviously, you're engaging with your stakeholders, you've got your communications and how you're going to communicate with people. You've got to make sure that you're bringing people along for that full journey with you. So the good bit was we actually went from UBDs, and we have quite an extensive pile of UBDs, to this. So this is the map of where our the bins are, and for our drivers. So this is a map of how, if they're a new driver, they'll want to know this, they'll want that help for turn by turn. As they progress, as they've been there for years, they've got the capacity to actually come back to us and say, no, it's actually better if I do it this way. And so we can tailor the maps for them as well. So as far as we're concerned, our journey is almost complete. It has been long. We've made sure that we've engaged early on. And by engaging early on, especially with the drivers, it's meant that they're on board. So our end product looks like this. We're looking at monitoring our speed, our fatigue, and our mass management. We're developing dashboards with our contractor to make sure that we can see very easily and clearly what's happening out there, where are our problems. We've also got exception buttons, so if there's a bin not out, say there's low wires in a street, they can press that button, that'll alert all of the other drivers to the fact that there's low wires, so there's a lot of safety and contamination. So that helps us to be able to, they press a button, it takes a photo of I didn't do that, did I? Takes a photo of the bin, the contamination, and then we can pull that through from their system to ours, and we can send a letter out to that resident. And obviously the other part is the videos that we get, and these have been really good. I'm not sure where all your backgrounds are from, but I have to say that a lot of our drivers will come, say, look, there's been an incident, and we will be able to look at the footage and we can either identify what's happened, or, and I'm sure you've all had that GIPA request that comes in 6 months later, oh, you damaged my car, I don't know what day it was. but we can actually exonerate the drivers. And we've done that on multiple occasions where we've gone back, looked at footage and said, yep, we can see that there was no damage to your car. And then we might look at the next truck that comes along. Oh, right, so the damage has happened between our garbage truck going through and then our recycling truck. So we've been able to help the drivers as well along with this. And obviously we won't forget to celebrate once it's all done, dusted, and all the glitches are ironed out. So thanks very much for your time today.
I don't know about everybody else, but I love a good ADCAR program for change management. Just me then? Okay. Can't help it. I'm an accountant by trade. It's one of those challenges. Okay, so moving on, and thank you, Fiona. We actually made up a little bit of time, so I really appreciate that. Not that I'm pointing any fingers at David today. So our next speaker, we have Tim Watson from Arcadis coming to speak to us about waste system resilience, a digital approach. Yep, just checking. Tim is a digital sustainability professional with extensive sustainability experience across circular economy, climate change resilience, and digital innovation. Tim's current focus at Arcadis is the digitisation of our sustainability services to scale solutions and deliver maximum impact. And I will remind you, if you have any questions during Tim's presentation, you can use the app as well. Thank you, Tim.
Hello everyone, it's really nice to be here. Thank you very much for the welcome. So today I'm talking about waste system resilience and ways we can improve it using pretty simple technology solutions. Some of these pictures might look familiar. So this was a couple of years ago during that La Nina period. Very heavy rainfalls, flooding up and down the east coast. Before that we had the fires. We're facing more and more resilience challenges across our whole economy. And they lead to huge impacts on the way we do things. In particular, the waste system. So because of some of those impacts, be it climate, cyber attacks, political impacts or otherwise, the waste system, just like all the other systems we rely on for our day-to-day lives, is potentially vulnerable to those impacts. In particular, Sydney, obviously Sydney's a huge area, 5 million people producing more waste than anywhere. It's characterised by some single points of failure in that system, which means that any time any of those single points goes down for half a day, or multiple days, the system can back up and the impacts land on the preceding step in the journey. And in some cases, the councils are having to deal with the impacts of waste accumulating in the streets, angry residents not happy with the way the waste system is being managed, but that impact might be completely out of the council's hand, be it in a transportation route like a rail network, a transfer facility, or an end destination with a resilience challenge like a bushfire or a flooding impact. Because of these single points of failure, it's obviously vulnerable to shocks and stresses, as I've mentioned. Just a couple of examples. So back from prior to 2022 and during 2022, bushfire impacts on landfill sites, blocking up the system, as well as that damaged rail line for 10 days that led to significant impacts across the waste system, in particular in southern Sydney. What this led to was the need to manage waste, the expectations of residents, and drove, I guess, for those southern Sydney region of councils, the need to have a better understanding of the waste system and where those resilience challenges lie in order to make better plans for managing when they do occur. So this led to a project that Arcadis delivered and is just about to wrap up delivering for the Southern Sydney region of councils, which is an organisation. Vincent's here in the room today if you want to have a chat to him, and I'm sure some of the other representatives are here today from the member councils. It represents 12 councils in Southern Sydney, a population of 1.8 million people, and 700 square kilometres. So a huge chunk of Sydney's waste comes from this region. SSROC understood that councils have, in terms of managing the resilience of the waste system, councils have three key roles. So to provide that continuous, reliable waste collection service to residents, procure and manage waste services and contractors, and manage waste responsibly, dispose of it responsibly, and maximise recovery. If these things aren't happening, if there's impacts on these objectives, then communities in particular can get pretty frustrated. So SSROC commissioned this project to understand more about the resilience challenges faced by the Southern Sydney Regional Council's waste system, to identify where those pinch points and hotspots were in relation to a broad range of resilience challenges. So not just climate impacts such as floods, bushfires and heat waves, but also cyber attacks, political instability, etc. The goals of the project, sorry, I have to look around as well, was to understand these resilience challenges, co-create an enduring risk reduction approach with the key stakeholders being the member councils and the waste managers, and ensure that governance systems could be established to make sure that this waste resilience assessment can be continually updated to make sure planning can occur and maximise the ability to maintain the resilience of the system in the face of some pretty critical challenges that the waste system and more broadly society are facing. So the project was funded by Resilience New South Wales and obviously driven by SSROC, when all the member councils, all 12, had a lot of participation through the project. So it was a really enjoyable process. In terms of the overall project approach, I'm going to be talking mainly about the platform at the bottom here, but we had a broader, program of work. So the first was to set up a framework for resilience. So that was basically the development of a risk management framework, focusing specifically on risks to the system, resilience challenges to the waste system at the council level. SSROC's objective is to understand a helicopter view of how those risks come together in the regional level. The framework was developed by significant direct engagement with the stakeholders, lots of steering committee, lots of working groups, lots of discussion about how to frame and rate risks. And the core of this project was delivered by the waste team at Arcadis, while I sit in the sustainability team and really focus on these digital solutions. The third step was to develop reports and action plans to make sure that once the project finishes, there's some tangible actions for the member councils to take and continue on supporting continued action in the face of continued change. The platform we've developed to deliver, to help the delivery of the project, sits kind of underneath all of these and was fed and developed through the first two stages and helped inform the last two stages. So the key objectives were to maintain a single source of truth for resilience challenges, being the risk registers for every single council. Importantly, aggregate waste system data in one place for 12 councils. So this, obviously at the council level, you guys have your waste data and your waste data. You know who your contractors are, you know where your waste goes across all the streams. But SSROC at the regional level didn't have a clear picture of exactly how this is working for all councils. With the objective here of keeping at that single source of truth to support more effective risk management and mitigation planning into the future. So the objective was to have a long-lasting that the outcomes of the project would be long-lasting, spurring continued resilience planning for the region. So we employed this change management framework in the development of the software, which keeps data at the centre. Good data is really critical for understanding risk and quantifying what those risks might look like, but making sure that people are involved. So we made sure that the users of the tool were involved in its development. We made sure that it aligned to the process, being the risk management framework that we established through the project. And finally, that we use best fit technology to deliver the solution. So I'll go into a bit of the detail of our process in the development of the software now. So some of the key objectives for the tool itself, not necessarily the broader project, but for that tool, were that we distilled out of workshop sessions, was engagement. We wanted to visualize risk issues and make it easy for councils to quickly understand the snapshot of their risk profile in a visual way. the client wanted, SS Rock wanted, and the member councils wanted a place to store that data in a single source of truth. They want the ability to explore scenarios, and this is a developing component of the tool, but the ability to quantify specific risk impacts and what they might look like over certain durations was of key interest. And finally, the objective was that the tool would support resilience planning through exploring risks across different council areas in the region and quantifying those as well. So our development approach consisted of these 5 steps. So vision and objective setting, working with the stakeholders to understand what they wanted in the tool to distill out those key objectives. We undertook quite a detailed user needs assessment workshop in Sydney later last year to really work out exactly what the needs, wants and wishes were for the platform and how it could be most useful for the stakeholders. This led to the development of a specification, basically drawing up exactly what we could do within our scope. We had quite a limited scope for this. It was developed, I wouldn't say on the smell of an oily rag, but not too much. And I think we wanted to make sure we kept it lean and achievable. We could leave the client happy with our output. We then developed a prototype for testing. So we worked with some of the selected stakeholders who were interested, ran them through the tool, we presented it, we got them to have a crack at it and I kind of iron out any of the pinch points and then finally deploy the tool with the final final risk system data. Here's a bit of a layout of the way the data comes together in the platform. So the blue tiles are data input from councils, and we've teased this out through the delivery of the project. So we've got our waste database, the amount of waste for every waste stream for every council. The council risk registers are the detailed documented risks for each council. So they're tailored for each council. They're not always the same, different contractors, different challenges. So everyone is specific. And then general council systems information like which contractor are you using, when does that contract end, etc. What this flows into through the platform is data analysis and impact profiles, and you're looking at the home page here. So the data analysis allows simple communication and update of all of the waste data through the LGA level portal. So council members can click on that portal, select their council, update risk information, update waste data. And secondly, the SS Rock portal, which is the helicopter view that I mentioned before, aggregating all the risk data at the regional level, so the region can get a better picture to help advocacy, better planning for resilience through having a better view of risk across the system. And finally, the data modelling. So we use the live waste data that's been imported along with the risk information to inform the scenario builder, which can be calibrated, and I'll give you a little show of how that came together. The platform was developed on a program called Smartsheets. It's like a low-code type platform. You can do a lot of quite cool things with it. It's pretty simply like an online Excel, but you can customize home pages. So it's a really simple platform, and that kept the costs of development low. Oh, no. Hello, there we go. Okay, I think I switched it off by accident. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the LGA portal. So a council member can click on their profile. It's all open at this point. There's no user access restrictions, but that can be implemented. And what this does is give any user a picture of the waste profile, the waste system risk profile for each council. So you're looking at the main dashboard for the LGA level there. This basically gives you a snapshot of that risk profile. How many high risks have I got? At what point in the system do they occur? Which contractors are associated with those risks? What's the proportion of impacts by type? And then finally, what are the key risk issues? So we've sort of created a simple summary table of the key risks there in that main table. This LGA portal, again, allows for waste system data input and update. You're able to change on an annual basis, update your waste data, update the council risk register in the case of changing risk profiles or implementation of control actions to measure, to manage issues. And obviously it includes those live summary dashboards, so you can use it to help for reporting, communication of risk to executive or other stakeholders. This is the SSROC dashboard, so this is that regional level dashboard. It aggregates the waste data as the waste data and the waste risk system information at that regional level, as I've mentioned. It provides a few different ways of looking at the information. So one is the systems map. This is all filterable by all the different waste streams, by all the different councils, so the user can get a picture of, if they just want to focus on 3 specific councils, they can. It gives you the quantity of ratings across each council, as well as a quick snapshot of the key issues identified across those councils as well. It really provides that helicopter view that the SSROC was interested in having in order to help that advocacy and understand where the risk hotspots are. Just a bit more of a zoom in here on the systems map. So as far as we understand, I saw something on the AI slide about mapping the waste system with quantities globally. This is just for Sydney, and I don't think this had been done before, and we basically collected all that information about contractors, quantities, and so what you're looking at is a systems map of, you can hover over the bars and the thickness of them represents the volume. You can identify where waste goes in the system from council to council, and it's all filterable, so if you only want to look at 2 or 3 councils, you can see which ones share a common potential single point of failure, so you can understand more about the risk profile based on how that system comes together. Finally, the scenario modelling piece. So this is, I guess, it's a working tool, but I think there's a lot more potential than this than we could deliver in the project. But basically, you can configure, using the left-hand panel, configure a scenario that you want to understand the impact of. So quantify what the waste impact, not the cost impact, that's kind of next steps, but the waste impact, how much waste accumulates given the impact of a bushfire on a certain component of the waste system, how much waste is backing up through that system. We made some assumptions about how waste can, would sit throughout the system, but the idea is here that you can really quantify what that impact might look like, how much waste are we having to deal with here if some component of the system goes down. One key challenge, I guess, is the inability for us to understand what the capacity of different system stages are. So a challenge of the project was, well, we don't know how much some of these receivers can actually hold at any given point in time, which means that we don't know how much waste we'll have to accumulate before it has to start backing up through the system. So a key kind of vulnerability or challenge is having more transparency about how much waste can sit at various stages through that system. This is connected to the live waste data, so as the waste data is updated in the main portal, the quantities get reflected here as well, so it's always up to date. So what's next? So through the project, the delivery team's developing council-level action plans, so using the tools, charts, and to sort of make that reporting process much more streamlined. The objective is to have the platform used in an ongoing way for waste resilience tracking and planning, with the key users being that working group to coordinate the delivery of resilience measures based on this work, understanding what that risks profile looks like and how councils can work together to manage the waste system for a more resilient system. But we have a vision for a more resilient waste system, but we need to know a full regional picture. This is just southern Sydney, it's a lot of people, but there's a whole, Sydney metropolitan region generating waste, adding to this system. So the way we've mapped it out only considers a third really of what that waste volume looks like. Understanding more about the broader picture and the broader system and how much waste is flowing through it, where those single points of failure and kind of pinch points might be, is a really important critical step for building a more resilient waste system. So again, building some redundancy into the system is essential, removing those single points of failure, or at least understanding where they are and what needs to happen if things happen, if things go wrong. So having that network-wide view for the whole of Sydney for a start, but it could be much more broad, statewide or even national, including the latest data so you can make informed decisions about the impacts of resilience challenges. Again, reduce system redundancy. I just made a point here about understanding that capacity of specific nodes in the system. Without that information, we don't know how much waste a certain contractor can manage in a scenario where there's a blockage. And that, again, just to reiterate, that was a key challenge for the project. We think having this view of the waste system in its entirety with quantification can help improve response and emergency planning, but also more strategic planning with state and federal level entities to make sure that the waste system can be more resilient to the projected changes we're facing across climate and other resilience challenges. So we see a lot of potential in digital solution here. Again, low cost initiative, kind of, I guess, call it a prototype. We're starting off, we're making headway, but there's lots more room for improvement, and I think lots more room for making a more resilient waste system. So thank you very much.
That was excellent, Tim, and I'd be really keen to understand the opportunities of AI and integration into that. When you're using something like a smart sheeting system, getting that third-party information about licence conditions and the licence volumes that facilities can take. Okay, so on to our last presenter, and we will have questions at the end of our session. So Clint Butler is going to speak to us about pure hydrogen, the new fuel. Clint has a rich career spanning 20 years in the energy domain. He has firmly established himself as an expert in the intricacies of hydrogen production and hydrogen appliances in the global energy landscape. He has been instrumental in shaping companies' contributions to the green hydrogen supply chain. Thank you, Clint.
All right, thank you. Waste 2024, Coffs Harbour. All right, today I will discuss the learnings from pure hydrogen and what we have embarked on, from hydrogen production, refuelling solutions, and hydrogen appliances, to case studies from real clients.
The future has arrived with Australia's first hydrogen fuel cell prime mover, and you can now be part of the clean energy revolution. The Taurus is available now, setting new standards for sustainability, performance and efficiency in the commercial transport industry. This innovative powerhouse is ready to take Australia's transportation industry to the next level. Why choose the Taurus? Because it's not just a vehicle, it's a revolution in clean energy and transportation, with an Australian design that blends cutting-edge technology with premium parts. Let's talk performance. The Taurus truck boasts remarkable power, acceleration and range, all while producing zero emissions. It's a win-win for your business and the environment. The Taurus is built to handle the toughest tasks, ensuring your business remains competitive and environmentally responsible. Step inside and you'll discover a world of comfort and innovation. The Taurus cabin is designed for long-haul drivers, featuring cutting-edge technology and ergonomics for a fatigue-free journey. With Australia's vast distances, you need a reliable partner, and the Taurus delivers on that promise. Enjoy a smooth and quiet ride, all while knowing you're reducing your carbon footprint. Experience the power of innovation, the beauty of sustainability, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Australia's first hydrogen fuel cell prime mover, available now. Contact us today and be part of the future.
All right. So Pure Hydrogen's plan began with one simple idea, that every person should have a say into the future, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to look beyond the immediate horizon to a future full of possibility. This is our plan for the future for all, which can set an example in Australia and also further abroad. Go green, go pure hydrogen. So what is hydrogen? A few fun facts. Everyone remembers the Hindenburg. 1937 fake news. Did you know that hydrogen put the first man on the moon? Currently produces water for the International Space Station and is the most abundant element in the universe. Similar to methane and LPG from a handling and safety perspective. Pure Hydrogen is an ASX-listed company, which is a solution-focused clean energy company seeking to become the leader in the development of hydrogen and energy projects through the use of cutting-edge technology processes. We plan to supply hydrogen to both Australian customers and to export markets through the production of green, emerald, which is waste to hydrogen, which I believe is greener than green, and turquoise hydrogen. Pure Hydrogen is targeting to become Australia's leading integrated hydrogen business, focusing on manufacturing, storage, transport, and supply. We do consider ourselves a hydrogen solution company above everything else. Who is Pure Hydrogen, and what is this seamless transition from diesel to hydrogen power? Firstly, let me tell you a bit about Pure Hydrogen. Pure Hydrogen continues to focus on the growth and development of its hydrogen fuel and hydrogen fuel cell vehicle businesses, in line with our strategic plan to continually demonstrate the use cases for hydrogen. Pure Hydrogen successfully has signed up JJ Waste, JJ Richards, and Solo Resource Recovery to advance the developments of demonstration models in hydrogen-powered garbage trucks. We also have a trial with food and beverage multinational PepsiCo, with Australia's first hydrogen fuel cell prime mover, the Taurus. In September 2023, Pure Hydrogen became a majority shareholder of Australian hydrogen fuel cell trucking company, H-Drive International, to distribute hydrogen fuel cell trucks, buses within that business in Australia, Europe, and US, gaining more and more traction, especially for refuse trucks. Confidence in the community. That's where it's needed. And by initially supplying hydrogen micro-hubs to back-to-base trucking for waste collection, prime movers and buses is a great place to start. Manufacturing hydrogen with net zero carbon emissions. So where is Pure Hydrogen and what do we want to be? Our company believes we need to get confidence in that community, and by initially supplying hydrogen to back-to-base trucking for those waste collection trucks and stationary power generation for processing is a great place to start, which is why we're working on strategic locations across our three largest cities, Melbourne, Brisbane and Sydney. All three sites initially would be looking at producing approximately 500 kilos per day per site, which is the equivalent of 25 trucks or buses, with sites being able to be upscaled for future growth as the demand for a clean, green fuel becomes accepted within our community. As confidence in the market grows, so will refuelling stations on volume in regional locations or locations on main routes, e.g. Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to Brisbane. We join the dots in between. Then the opportunity for long distance haulage for trucks will come. Hydrogen production. So every customer I speak to wants green hydrogen, and they want to pay a minimal asking price to what I offer. When I say why does it have to be green, the answer 9 times out of 10 is because that is what Twiggy said. Now don't get me wrong, Twiggy Forrest has put hydrogen on the map in Australia and is working on doing something similar around the world. But does it have to be green via solar or wind? If I'm producing hydrogen from a woody biomass that would normally be going to landfill, is that not renewable? If I'm producing hydrogen from sewage sludge, is that not renewable? If I'm preventing waste to go to landfill and prolonging landfill sites and putting hydrogen made from renewable sources where they were destined to landfill into a waste collection truck that goes out and collects waste, is that not a true circular economy? This, I believe, is greener than green, and this is how we, government and council, get confidence in the community. Green hydrogen via electrolysis has its place. And why not utilise the sun while it is shining and the wind when it is blowing? But what happens on a day when it's not? Waste to hydrogen can complement via gasification and the turquoise method of splitting biomethane. Ideally, one day it will not be about colour. It will be about what scope emission and which one will have the most impactful ways for companies to increase their sustainability efforts, achieve net zero, and combat climate change. Emissions can be divided into 3 different categories: Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3. Scope 1 emissions are a result from the direct activities of your company, e.g. fuel use for facilities and vehicles that your company owns or operates. Scope 2 emissions result from generation of procured electricity your company consumes, e.g. electricity and steam. Scope 3 emissions come from indirect sources in your company's supply chain: purchase raw goods, distribution and transportation, employee commuting, use of product sold and end-of-life treatment. Purchasing carbon offsets takes this option with a grain of salt. Carbon offsets have come under fire for being an easy out for companies looking to claim they are sustainable while taking little tangible action. Heavy use of carbon offsets follows accusations of greenwashing. However, for companies whose operations don't allow them to eliminate all Scope 1 emissions, even with equipment upgrades, carbon offsets are still an option. In essence, a carbon offset is a reduction in emissions of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases made to compensate for emissions made. Every tonne of emissions reduced results in the creation of 1 carbon offset. When corporations purchase carbon offsets, the money is used to finance projects that otherwise wouldn't have been built without that investment. Carbon offsets projects include forest preservation, energy efficiency projects, and landfill methane capture. Enough about that. Are you guys still awake in the back? Okay, so the seamless transition from diesel to hydrogen. When I mention that sentence, words come into my mind and my everyday conversations I have with businesses. Clean, dirty, collaboration, partnerships, expensive, new, Hindenburg. What is the price of diesel in 7 years? Overseas reliant, zero emission, the future. So one of Pure Hydrogen's investments is H-Drive International, a global provider of hydrogen and electric vehicles for commercial transport such as buses, trucks, prime movers and more. It offers a range of zero emission options and aims to decarbonise the transport industry. H-Drive supports the leading global component suppliers with growing support of Australian product development and assembly. So working with trusted OEMs is key. Collaboration, partnerships. Booker Municipal is a perfect example of a partnership, seeking the opportunity within the waste industry and having foresight to see that trucks are going down the zero emission route. Booker has given the knowledge and engineering expertise that as a hydrogen company and also for new hydrogen fuel cell vehicle OEMs that we did not have. Once again, these trucks need to be right, and partnering and collaborating with the right people can and will make a difference. The more hydrogen vehicles we start to see on the roads, the more confidence we will get in our communities around hydrogen. We do not want to see this fail, so it has to be done properly from the start. With lower fuel and maintenance costs, the higher capital cost of hydrogen equipment can be offset. For some use cases, we can create lower monthly OPEX over a 7-year period, while reducing emissions. The step needs to be done now, not in 2 to 3 years, as it will be too late to achieve your targets. But it's not just trucks and buses that are dirty carbon-emitting diesel. We can also offer fuel cell hydrogen generators for peak power shaving, EV charging using a truly renewable fuel source, forklifts, marine applications, ferries, barges, drones, the list goes on. So we've got a trial in play at the moment. There's been a lot of talk about hydrogen having a leading role in the journey to decarbonising transport and reaching net zero, particularly with the hard to decarbonise sectors such as road transport. However, like any other fuel source, there are safety concerns surrounding the use of hydrogen that need to be addressed if we are to accelerate the hydrogen economy within the transportation industry. It's clear that hydrogen comes with a lot of advantages. Its high energy density allows heavy duty applications where weight is critical to significantly reduce the weight of the system compared to current battery electric solutions. With that said, PepsiCo sees hydrogen, for example, to be able to enable the maximisation of the heavy-duty truck's payload and the range on its single tanks, with high-speed refuelling of hydrogen-powered vehicles possible, minimising idle times of vehicle fleets and equipment as they have a 24/7 operation. Some of the reasons why we won the deal with PepsiCo: flexible refuelling and delivery options to suit their operations, distribution and refuelling, and a turnkey solution. We have a local ecosystem, produce locally, turnkey distribution and refuelling, local specialist hydrogen installers, local customer service and support. And they also help with tender weightings for zero emissions to win more contracts. Future-proof fleet against change in policies, earn and report carbon credits, align with global carbon economics and carbon reduction targets, future-proof fleet against global fuel disruptions and wild pricing, use Australian-made green hydrogen, talent attraction and retention, and stakeholder engagement, public image. The JJ's Waste Hydrogen Fuel Cell Collection case study. So it's a circular economy, waste made to hydrogen, hydrogen to go into waste collection trucks to go out and collect waste. JJ's will be an early adopter of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and from this they will see a reward for innovation, giving leverage to winning contracts by having zero-emission trucks. JJ's Waste will be doing a 12-month trial based on our wet lease model, with the truck being utilised in Queensland. Currently, the management of JJ's Waste, Pure Hydrogen, Booker Municipal, and the OEM H-Drive are working together to have this vehicle on our roads by mid-July this year. Having a fixed cost of fuel supply and a decrease in maintenance costs were a big bonus for JJ's Waste. Solo resource recovery. Recently, we've had a sale of a reloading hydrogen fuel cell waste collection truck that will be deployed into Adelaide, South Australia, within the city of Torrens Council. This brings Solo's H2 vehicles to 2 now, as a side loader will be deployed in Tweed Heads towards the third quarter of 2024. This has been part of their strategy to spearhead energy solutions for councils such as waste management. Some reasons for Solo to take the pure hydrogen waste collection truck was the range that we could offer of 300 kilometres before needing to refuel. The truck emits zero CO2 gas emissions from the tailpipe under operating conditions, resulting in better air quality for the community, for which it is to be trialled. Additionally, the vehicle is quiet, reducing noise by over 70%. There are a number of reasons why it makes sense that hydrogen may replace diesel fuel. Its ability to mirror many of the benefits of diesel, range and refueling time among them. Yet while diesel engines have had decades of operation, hydrogen fuel cells are in the early adoption stages. It remains to be determined whether hydrogen will truly become the new diesel. But one thing is certain, the industry has taken aim, and so has pure hydrogen. Go green, go pure hydrogen. Thank you.
We do actually have time for some questions. So if you have a question for any of our speakers today, we've got 5 minutes. Just raise your hand, and there's a lovely lady at the back with a roving microphone. Yes, please, down the front here.
I got a question for the last speakers. Thanks for the Pure Hydrogen's speech, and then it is quite very good to see, because we all know like hydrogen probably going to be the future energy source. My question for you is, I realized in your presentation you mentioned 2 sources of hydrogen production. One is the water's electrolyze, and the second one is pyrolysis of the biomethane. So I got a question for the biomethane one. What is the feedstock you actually used in the pyrolysis?
Can you take the microphone and maybe stand for everybody? Thank you.
Is this for turquoise? Because we use biomethane to split that, methane being CH4, so we can take the carbon and the hydrogen is actually the byproduct. We actually make another product from that, which is called graphene.
So the biomethane is from the pyrolysis, the first stage pyrolysis of the biomass, and you generate the biomethane, and you have the second stage of pyrolysis and then generate the graphene. Yeah. How you control the quality? Because from my understanding, it's very hard to achieve the pure carbon, and because I understand the graphene is very expensive product, and often the pyrolysis generate more like hydrocarbon rather than or wax rather than the actually the carbon and the hydrogen. Yeah.
So we own a company called the Turquoise Group, based up in Brisbane. I don't get into those scientists and the researching side of it, but what they're doing right now is making a very, very pure source of graphene, which for everyone to know, we're probably looking at that graphene to eventually be looking to replace lithium-ion in batteries, so using graphene into batteries. But I'll leave the science to those guys. But from what I've heard, they're doing a very good job on the graphene side.
Thank you. And we've got time for one more question just behind you.
Yeah, g'day. So my question's for Tim. I thought that was a great thing that you've built. What sort of timeframes are you looking at with building something like that? I assume there's a lot of discussions you have to have, and then the actual rollout. How long did that all take?
Yeah, so the project, the development of the software took about 3 to 4 months in total, from kind of that initial vision and user needs assessment to the prototyping. But I think it could have been quicker, to be honest. It was kind of, dependent on various project stages being fulfilled. So using that Smartsheets platform, not much requirement for coding means you can do things quite quickly and test things quite quickly. So, yeah.
Excellent. And one more sneaky question if anybody wants one before lunch. Oh, and we've got one up the back. If you can just raise your hand high. Thank you.
This is in regards to the hydrogen. Do we have any comparison for the life cycle of these trucks compared to the diesel-operated trucks in terms of cost as a percentage? And the other one, really, I'm interested to know how much of the 1 kilogram of hydrogen or 1 liter of hydrogen, which is, I don't really think it's been sold by liter.
That's a great question, and I'm glad I've got Ben Kittle, the CEO of H-Drive, beside me. So what was the first question? Was how much hydrogen to be used in a vehicle per kilo as per litre?
The life cycle comparison and the total cost of the life cycle of a truck.
Yeah, okay. All right, very good. So I guess the answer to that question is the vehicle design life has been designed for 25 years. Obviously, the refuse industry, they wear their trucks out fairly quickly, right? So it wouldn't be expected that 25 years would be the actual life cycle of the truck. But the fuel cell and the battery is the highest cost components in the vehicle at this point in time. And, their life cycle will be around 7 to 10 years in operation. Before you need to do any major overhaul and repairs on them. Also, too, the maintenance on the vehicle is probably about a third of your current trucks, so that you don't have to drain the oils in them, and there's lots of things that obviously don't need to be done in comparison to a diesel truck. So I think the full efficiency of the vehicle is yet to be seen until they go into service and people can actually touch them and see them and actually experience them in service. The second part there is the gas. So it's actually sold as per kilogram of gas. So our truck, which you can see out there in the booker stand down the end, it holds around 14 kilos of gas per cylinder. So realistically, we've got a range of around 260 kilometres on that truck. I think the general waste industry sees 1,500 bins per cycle, and that's around 100 to 150 kilometres in transit. So we've built the truck to obviously meet those requirements. Is that per kilogram? So look, we're buying gas at the moment. There's a refueler down in the Illawarra in Blue Scope Steel, and that's where I get my gas from in the trucks. And at the moment, it's around $13-14 per kilogram. I've seen it sold for around $20 per kilogram, but you've got parity between the use of diesel and hydrogen at about $22 per kilogram. So it's slightly cheaper.
Thank you very much. And if I can get you to all join me in thanking our presenters in the technology stream, number 1 today.